just want to welcome everybody here to our continuing educational series. My name is Michael Tucker, President of the Long Island Food Council. The Long Island Food Council was created to bring people together, create collaboration amongst food, beverage, service professionals in the region. Our members and partners are leaders in their field, providing a network of experts and experience. These valuable connections enable the Council to provide a platform for education and dialogue at our monthly meetings and events like this one. In recognizing the economic potential in the food and beverage industry on Long Island, we continually strive to bridge the gap between our industry, academia, and all levels of government. And there's pamphlets on your table, there's pamphlets in the back, if you have any questions, myself, Dolores Ostley, Elise Tucker are here, can answer your questions about the Council. To start off with, I want to do some special thank yous. I want to thank the Chairman of the New York Liquor Authority, Vincent Bradley, Thomas Donahue, Secretary of Authority at the New York Liquor Authority, Gary Mayerhoff, General Counsel for the Authority, New York Liquor Authority, for taking the time today to speak to us. They're coming down from Albany, or I believe they were in Harlem, I think. We all know how tough it is on the LA to get down here, so we appreciate your time. I also want to thank our partners who are here, mostly in the room today: Empire State Development, New York Ags and Market, Manufacturing Technology Recess Consortium at Stony Brook, which is our MTRC grant program, which a few of you have taken the opportunity to get grants for both equipment and consulting. We have Suffolk County Economic Development and Planning, the SBDC, Choose Long Island, and Island Harvest. Also, I want to thank our sponsors, event sponsors Brown Altman, our lunch sponsors Mazars, contributing sponsor Arizona Iced Tea. And then additional thank you to Elise Tucker, Dolores Ostley, Nancy Verdi, and a big thank you to the Hotel Indigo for putting us on continually and hosting our events here. Thank you. Now I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Augie Ruckenschild. I'll try to put all of this in here for you, Augie. East End Projects Coordinator, Economic Development Specialist, Agriculture and Marine, Suffolk County, Department of Economic Development and Planning. He helped launch the Choose Long Island Local and Independent Initiative, a collaborative effort to inspire Suffolk County residents, and I am reading this word for word, so bear with me, to spend more money on food and local beverages. He is co-author of the 2015 Suffolk County Agriculture and Farmland Protection Plan, primary author of the Suffolk County Agricultural Stewardship Plan. August also serves as chair of the Suffolk County Food Policy Council, Suffolk County Agricultural Leasing Board. Augie teaches a master's level class entitled Food Policy and Health Outcomes in the United States at Stony Brook University School of Medicine, and he's a very good friend of the council. So Augie, you're up first.
So I was going to rely on some technology today, but unfortunately it's down, but I should be able to swing it anyway. So hopefully a lot of the people in the room have met me before or heard of me before. My name is Augie Ruckenschild. I work in Suffolk County Department of Economic Development and Planning. What was really nice about my position is that it was created after the election of Steve Malone nearly 8 years ago. They went out and they created essentially a liaison within the Department of Economic Development and Planning to work with our agricultural communities, our fishing communities, our shellfish aquaculture communities, and that also includes, by my own initiative, because I want to work with folks like this in the room, our vineyards, our cideries, our distilleries, our breweries. So it's a really fun position that I get to make up as I go along, and it entails taking on a lot of new challenges. But what I like, again, about working with, say, the folks in this room, is the understanding of collaborating, of working together with government, working together with other even competitors, in understanding and appreciating the fact that these are industries, whether it be food or agriculture, that benefits from clustering. This idea that we create these areas, we create these tourism opportunities where people can come out and enjoy a glass of wine and then maybe go hiking afterwards, or grab a beer and then go pick your own pumpkins, or go out on a charter fishing boat and bring with you a bottle of wine and be purchased at a local vineyard. That is, I think, the main appeal of operating and working here in Suffolk County. I think, again, it's why there's so much potential for the industry, despite some of the other challenges. We know, to be candid, it can be more expensive to do business in Suffolk County. There are hoops we have to jump through out here, but again, we have those hoops for a reason. We have those hoops to preserve our quality of life, to maintain our open spaces, to protect our groundwater, to protect our surface waters, and the things that make Suffolk County and Long Island special. So that's why, again, it's really fun to work with these industries to figure out how to grow those industries, because there's a beneficial relationship in figuring out ways to do business here in Long Island, but also preserving our quality of life. So again, thank you very much for having me here today. I want to talk a little bit. I was asked to kind of give some updates on what's happening as far as trends in the craft beverage space. A recent analysis by our own Department of Economic Development and Planning. This is about 2 years old, so maybe it's a little bit outdated, but we evaluated that our breweries, this is our breweries, I have numbers on the other industries as well, generate approximately 320 jobs, support over $17 million in payroll, and create $56 million in sales. If you use kind of traditional economic development multipliers, expected that these breweries in total generate about $92 million in economic activity and support about 390 jobs. Now, the New York State Brewers Association, I'm not sure if there's some folks from here today, have some marginally larger numbers. I think it's fair to take those two numbers as kind of a conservative and perhaps less conservative extremes. They evaluated there's about 36 breweries in Suffolk, 470 jobs, over 1,300 total jobs using those kind of economic multipliers, nearly $99 million in wages, and $407 million in gross domestic products. So we're talking about a real important economic generator. And we're talking about a generator that comes, again, with a lot of responsibilities as far as what are the communities that we're operating in and how do we act as good neighbors. Breweries have been opening in the state of New York at the rate of about 1 per week in the last few years. That, again, is according to the New York State Brewers Association. They also, that same report, again, by the New York State Brewers Association, found that Suffolk County has more breweries than any other county in New York, which is pretty impressive. So Suffolk County #1, hopefully we could retain that title. Again, I think a lot of the enthusiasm that comes within that space is this idea of clustering. That if you do a good job creating attractive places to visit, whether in traditional downtowns, historic downtowns, or whether in places out in the North Fork or the South Fork or down near our waterfronts. We have people in place here that are looking to work with you, and I think we have some really great panelists today that are going to tell us how we jump through those hoops and how we figure out how to promote the industry even further, whether it's tourism promotion or just getting started. One of the things I did not have the opportunity to show you today is that if you search in Google for Suffolk County craft beverage, there is a page that's essentially a how to get started page for craft beverage companies. So it's like, what do I need as far as SLA permits are concerned? What do I need as far as Department of Health Services permits are concerned? What do I need to do if I'm opening in a location that's already sewered? It's not quite as easy as you might suspect. So I would encourage people to visit that page. Again, it's a nice, easy to read FAQ. In many instances, the FAQ is just going to say, well, we can't give you an exact answer. You need to call Stephen Kane at the Department of Health Services, or you need to call Janice McGovern at Department of Public Works. But we have people invested in the success of your business. So utilize that page, please. It's a really good asset. We spent a lot of time working on it. I'm sure a lot of people didn't even know it exists, but it does. And we're always looking for feedback onto how valuable the page is. So please take a chance to look at it. Another thing we've done, which was mentioned in my bio, was to launch this Choose LI initiative. And now this again is another time where I point.
What's the page?
So the craft beverage page, I don't remember. It's long. It's a very cumbersome county-based HTML address. If you just search for Suffolk County craft beverage, that will get you there. I apologize. It's just one of those cumbersome HTML addresses. An address I do remember is chooseli.org. So if you're bored right now, if you want to go to Choose LI and check it out, it's this really cool initiative where we're trying to get Suffolk County residents to pledge to spend 10% of their local food budget, which would be $17.60 a week on local food and beverages. To spend it on subtlety, to spend it on Tate's cookies, to spend it at a local farm stand, to go there and just again make that initial effort. Make that dedication to buying a 12-pack of beer at Long Island Brewery, or whatever it is, buying a bottle of wine at Cino Vineyards. Make that extra effort, talk about that effort, post it on social media, take beautiful pictures of the vineyards and breweries and farms that we have here in Suffolk County, and help us get the word out about how important it is, again, to our business development as a county, but also in preserving our quality of life. what the website's done really well that hasn't been done before is that we've actually mapped every single farm stand, brewery, cidery, distillery, local flower retailer, restaurants that carry locally grown oysters. These assets, this inventory wasn't available before. So finally we have a one-stop where you could go and see every single vineyard we have. And if you're missing, please, at the very top of that page, it says my business is missing. They'll send an email to the Choose LI, which I monitor directly, and we'll get you updated within about 48 hours. So again, this is a really neat asset that we haven't had before, that we hope our tourists, our visitors can utilize, as well as our residents, to say, hey, where can I find the nearest brewery? Where can I find the nearest farm stand? We have Western Suffolk farm stands. People forget that, but they exist. And again, it's a good opportunity for you to go out there and buy local and invest into your community. So I will wrap up there. Again, I was hoping to kind of feature a little bit more of the website itself, but I really hope some of you will take the opportunity to look at the website, tell us how it can be improved or add some additional value to it. But now I'm going to call up and introduce our next speaker. Now is my opportunity, except I think Mike took away the oh, I got it. All right. So now it's my turn to read. Chairman Vincent Bradley. Vincent Bradley was unanimously confirmed as chairman of the State Liquor Authority on June 24, 2015. As chairman of the SLA, Mr. Bradley is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the agency. The SLA has two core statutory functions: properly issuing licenses and permits in a timely fashion, and ensuring compliance with the Alcohol Beverage Control Law. The chairman and the commissioners of the SLA are responsible for creating policy, developing strategy, and directing initiatives that create a regulatory framework designed to efficiently, ethically, and professionally accomplish these functions. The chairman and commissioners also ensure that the work of the agency harmonizes with the overall strategy and goals set by the executive chamber. In addition, the chairman also provides over all full board meetings of the agency. Chairman Bradley most recently served for 7 years as an assistant attorney general in charge of the New York State Attorney General's Poughkeepsie Regional Office. In addition to his role of managing the operations of the regional office and overseeing attorneys and cases, Bradley served as the regional public integrity officer and also conducted investigations involving consumer protection, illegal business practices, and fraud. Chairman Bradley graduated from the University of Notre Dame with a bachelor's degree in business administration, majoring in accountancy, and holds a JD from the State University of New York at Buffalo School of Law. Bradley, a native and resident of Ulster County, lives in Kingston with his wife and 2 children. Please join me in welcoming Chairman Vincent Bradley.
I apologize that you all had to go through that, hearing all of that. I was afraid he was going to read the whole thing. I did not write that, nor did I provide it. So I want to thank you for coming today. I want to thank you for inviting us to this. I do want to introduce, we try to get out here a couple times, once at least every 1 or 2 years, and I try to bring a lot of my executive staff with me. And today we have Tom Donahue, who's the Secretary of the Authority. Tom, raise your hand. And Gary Meyerhoff, as you heard, is the counsel to the authority. He just came on board our team a couple of weeks ago, and we're glad to have him. Gary, if you want to raise your hand. I'm going to do a brief overview of some of the things we focus on and we are focusing on at the SLA, and then Tom's going to get up and hopefully provide you with some real information that you can use in your businesses. So the SLA regulates approximately 70,000 licenses and permits statewide, including approximately 31,000 bars and restaurants, 17,000 grocery stores, 3,200 liquor stores, and over 1,100 manufacturers. Over the past 8 years, Governor Cuomo has made it a top priority to focus on the craft beverage industry. And as you heard from our previous speaker, that obviously is doing very well out here. And I'm just going to give you some numbers since the governor took office to show you that this focus has paid off. Since the first Craft Beverage Summit in 2012, the number of craft manufacturers statewide has more than doubled. 491 in 2012 to over 1,100 today. Long Island, as you heard, has likewise seen this growth. In 2012, there were 79 craft beverage manufacturers. As of today, there's 139 new manufacturers operating here in Long Island. One of the ways we try to support the opening of these craft beverage manufacturers, and as you heard, it is just the breweries are one a week, but we're also getting a number of distilleries, cideries, and this year we introduced a meadery license, which, having not been in the liquor industry before I came here, I never knew what mead was, but I learned very quickly. And that license, we just last week opened the first meadery up in Albany, and we have 4 new ones that are already in the hopper waiting to be approved. And one of the ways we support that, the industry as a whole, is through the Empire State Development has what's called a one-stop shop. That, if you're looking to open a craft beverage manufacturer, there is a area in Empire State Development that is manned by a gentleman named Stephen Fleming, who's an expert in the area of what you need to do, not just with the SLA, but with the federal agencies, as well as with our New York State Tax Department, Ag and Markets. And he can walk you through the process, and then he can help you with any problems develop. He frequently attends association meetings, and he's out and about constantly, so he's very accessible. Another way we try to support the industry is, Tom here he mans our what's called the craft beverage email. And that email is devoted to craft beverage manufacturers, questions, ideas. If there's a problem that you see in the industry that perhaps we could fix, whether it be through our ability in our agency or through new legislation, we want to hear about it. Use that email. Tom is the one who responds to those emails, and I believe that our response has been very quick. And that email is craftbev, all one word, @slanewyork.gov. Now, obviously, the most important function that we have as an agency is the granting of licenses, the approval of licenses, and trying to get businesses up and running as quickly as possible. And towards that end, we, in the last 8 months, have begun a computer project with an outside vendor that is going to streamline that process for our agency. It's going to be the applications are going to come through the front end, all computerized through the internet, and then on the back end, it's all going to be computerized, and our examiners will be able to examine the licenses in a much more efficient and quick manner. The issue lately has been, because of the development of this project, it's demanded an enormous amount of resources from our agency to develop these processes and walk the third-party company through everything they need to do, because they basically have to learn everything that our agency does in order to build this system. As a result, we're seeing some short-term pain as far as processing times in our licenses, and the processing times have gone up, unfortunately. Out here on Long Island, you have the benefit of being eligible for what's called a temporary permit. And for whatever reason, I'm not seeing that a lot of people in the application process are applying for the temporary permit. With a temporary permit, it allows you to get up and running in approximately 30 days. And you can have that permit while your application is pending with our agency. And I urge anyone who's applying for a license to try to get it, to apply for the temporary permit as well. It's a 90-day permit that we do renew periodically if we need to after the 90 days, and it costs about $600 or $690, I believe, which works out to, it's $640, and it works out to about $7.11 a day. And you can keep the permit till the end of the 90 days, even if your license has been approved prior to that. So you're going to get the full benefit of the permit. It's not going to cost you any extra money. However, you'll be up and running much quicker than you would if you didn't get the permit. On the enforcement side, most people don't understand that and Gary actually is one of the individuals who he's charged with prosecuting all our enforcement cases with his attorneys. Most people don't understand on the enforcement side, the large majority of our cases come from local law enforcement. And when I say the large majority, I'm talking 95%. We have approximately 25 investigators throughout the state for, as you heard, 70,000 licensees. So the fact of the matter is we don't have the ability to go out and randomly check people, and we don't. We respond to complaints almost 100% of the time, or referrals from local law enforcement. The only time that we do random checks is when we do underage initiatives, which one is actually going on right now, statewide, where we've set up a program where we are going to visit 500 locations from starting in September, probably till the end of November. And usually our enforcement people are so good that they generally double that number. They're charged with hitting 500. They're usually going to hit 1,000. Those are done randomly throughout the state. And the point is to stop the sales to underage individuals, to keep our roads safe, and to hopefully change the behavior of the premises that are selling to underage individuals, because it's obviously not safe for the underage children or for the people, for the citizens as a whole. So that's why we try to focus on that. We've been doing that over the last 8 years with some success. What we do, and we're going to make a point of doing further, is when those compliance checks are made and a store or a bar passes those compliance checks, we try to announce that as well. We're generally successful between 25 and 30% of the time with an underage sale, which means that there's 70 to 75% of the time that people are actually following the law. And I want to make a point that we understand that the vast majority of licensees follow the law. We're not out here to try to shut your business. We're not out here to try to hurt you. We understand the sacrifices that are made financially and in your time to run these businesses. We, of all people, want to see you succeed. And the enforcement is just to make sure that everything, that the law is being complied with in the best way that we can. We have, over several years, increased the amount of enforcement on the most egregious violators. Over the last year, we closed 350 businesses and cancellations. And in order for us to do that, it means that basically you become a risk to the public health, safety, and welfare, and therefore are unable to follow the obligations of the liquor authority or the liquor law. But as I said, we have no interest in going out there and trying to shut businesses. And towards that end, over the last, I believe, 8 years, we have entered into a program with several sponsors that we provide training. It's called ATAP training, which is Alcohol Training and Awareness Program. And we do that statewide, and we've done it over the last 8 years. We have an instructor that goes around. He sets up the program. It's I believe, a 3-hour program in the morning and a 3-hour program in the afternoon, and it's free. And with that, you get a certificate that allows you to, if your business does get caught serving to an underage individual, you can use that as a defense. And it also, if you do end up getting convicted of that violation, it can reduce the fine significantly. The first offense, I believe, it goes from $3,000 to $1,000. And that course is free, and it doesn't just focus on serving underage individuals. It also focuses on complying with the ABC law. And we understand that the law that we are all forced to follow here and that I'm forced to enforce is complicated. It a lot of times doesn't make sense. And the individual that we have that teaches this course is able to put it, one, in English for you, and two, give you best practices that you can follow so that you can try to stay out of trouble as much as possible. Now I'm going to turn it over to Tom, who is now going to, I believe we have the same technology issues that the former speaker had, so he's handed out a PowerPoint presentation on your table. You should be able to follow along with that, and we'll hopefully at the end be able to take some questions, because I'm sure that's the reason most of you want to hear from us anyway. Thank you very much for having me.
You're not going to read my bio? Page 6 of your program, there's a 10-year-old picture of me, and then my bio. Take some time right now, read through it. Well, I'll wait for you. Okay. I've been asked to discuss 2 topics very quickly. One is what the SLA does in comparison to what some of the other agencies, both at state and local level, do. Because there's some confusion about that. And also, to very quickly go through the types of licenses that we issue. We have lots of licenses, and it can get a little bit confusing. The chairman indicated you all have a handout there, which would be my slideshow. And I didn't realize it was that small, so I had to make it shrink a little bit. All right, so the SLA, we have jurisdiction over the sale and distribution of alcoholic beverages. State law preempts local laws on that subject. So a county, with 2 exceptions, a county, a city, a village, town cannot pass a law that regulates the sale and manufacture of alcoholic beverages. So we issue licenses and permits to those who are going to sell and distribute alcoholic beverages. And then, as the chairman pointed out, we enforce the ABC law and the rules of the authority against those licensees and permittees. We have very limited jurisdiction over people who don't have licenses. We can take civil action That's normally through the Attorney General's office, somebody who's producing wine, beer, whatever, without a license. Excuse me. You have, we work closely with the Department of Agricultural Markets, probably the one state agency we deal with the most. Those of you who have farms or producers probably deal with the ag markets regularly. Tax and finance, state tax and finance is also involved in alcoholic beverages because of the tax input, the excise taxes. NCON, Department of Environmental Conservation, is also involved. To a limited extent, the State Department of Health. Then on a local level, you've got your local health department, your building department, whatever that might be called in your county, right? Your building codes, your fire codes that are enforced. To the extent that they're not regulating alcoholic beverages, all those laws apply to whether you're a manufacturer or retailer. They all apply to you. So zoning. I know zoning's a big issue on Long Island for wineries. Anybody who has a winery or distillery wants to have a food and drinking establishment at your location. Now, the ABC law, up until 2011, used to say that a winery or a farm winery could have a restaurant. And, of course, in some towns, I know, particularly in Long Island, the zoning district you're located in would not allow you to have a restaurant. Well, if zoning says you can't have that restaurant, you can't have it, even if the ABC law says you can have it. Because that's not regulating alcoholic beverages, it's regulating a food and drinking establishment. In 2011, the law was amended, so now you can have a tavern with a farm winery, a brewery, a farm brewery. You still may have those same zoning issues, but the food requirement is not the same anymore. Some things a town or a county can do. Closing hours. How many retailers we have here? All right, a few. So the state closing hour is 4 a.m. A county can, that's for an on-premises establishment. A county can pass a resolution to restrict that hour of operation. The request goes to the state liquor authority, and then the members vote on it. So that's why you have a number of counties. There are very few counties that for on-premises retailers go to 4 a.m. Most have restrictions, just like package stores have restrictions about their operating hours. Under state law, you can go to midnight. I know, I think it's Nassau County is 9 p.m.? I'm not sure what Suffolk is. And the local option. When I started with the liquor authority, I had no idea there were dry towns in New York State. And there are, particularly in the western part of the state. A town, a city, and not yet a village, but they're working on that, can put up a referendum as a general election to go either dry or, and there's actually a term, partially dry. And we have a list of municipalities. We have partially dry, partially wet. I'm not sure what the difference between partially wet and partially dry is, but apparently we make that distinction. So in a nutshell, that's the difference between what we do. We deal specifically with the sale and distribution of alcoholic beverages, and then some things that are related to it, like we impose conditions on how a retailer operates. But everything else that's not involving the sale of alcoholic beverages is either governed by another state agency, ag markets, finance, NCON, or a local entity. All right, so very quickly now, I'm going to go through all the licenses we have. So for manufacturing, we have a winery license and a farm winery license. For brewers, we have a brewery license, a microbrewer license, and a farm brewer license. The difference between a brewer license and a microbrewer license is how much is produced. There's a cap on the microbrewer of 70,000 barrels. But with that comes a lower license fee. The farm licensees, the farm winery, the farm brewer, and so forth, as they go on the list, have one requirement. They have to produce a New York State product. So for farm wineries, they've got to produce wine that's made 100% out of New York grapes. Farm brewers are, right now, they're 60% of the hops, 60% of all the other ingredients. Farm distillers are 75%. So we have the wineries, the farm wineries, brewers, microbrewers, farm brewers. We've got cider producers, farm cideries, meat producers, farm meaderies. And then we have distillers, micro-distillers, rectifiers, micro-rectifiers, fruit brandy producers, and the farm distiller. Those are all liquor producers. Okay, so if you want to blend a product, not distill it, you're going to get a rectifier's license. I should note that out of all those farm licenses I talked about, only one has to actually be on a farm, and that's the farm winery. All the others can still have the farm designation as long as they're producing that New York State product. For off-premises licenses, do we have any off-premises licensees here? Package stores, grocery stores? Okay, so for beer, we have grocery and drugstore beer licenses. The convenience stores that you see that sell beer have to meet an inventory requirement to qualify for that license. We also have something called a vendor's license, which is essentially just a warehouse that located in New York City where they can sell beer out of. I don't think we have any of those licenses actually issued. For wine, we have the wine store license. We also have the roadside farm market license. That's the license for a farmer who has his stand, at maybe the corner of his driveway and the main road. He's selling his produce. He can actually get a license to sell New York State labeled wine there. There are some qualifications. The wine has to be from a farm winery that's within 20 miles of the market, and he can only have two, or she can only have two different kinds of wines at a time. For liquor, we have the package store license. So those are essentially the off-premises licenses. For on-premises, it's the same way we divide by beer and wine, and then full liquor. So we have a on-premises beer license that we refer to as the eating place beer license. We have a ballpark beer license for sporting venues. For wine, we have the on-premises wine license, which is for restaurants, catering halls, hotels, and then the special on-premises wine license, which is for taverns, nightclubs, lounges, pubs that only want to sell wine and beer, not liquor. For liquor, we have that same distinction. We have an on-premises license for restaurant, catering halls, hotels. Then we have the special on-premises license for the taverns, the nightclubs, the lounges, and so forth. Then we have a third category, the restaurant brewer license, which is a license that allows a restaurant, and it has to be a full restaurant, can't be a tavern, to produce a limited amount of beer that they can sell at their location and also wholesale it to other retailers. The fourth category we have is the cabaret license, which is a big entertainment venue. So if you have a nightclub or even a tavern where you have music or dancing and the capacity is more than 600, you have to get a cabaret license. So you can start to get a little confusing about what license you're applying for as you go through these. And then the fifth kind of on-premises license we have is the bottle club license. And that is for the venue that's going to either allow patrons to bring their own booze onto their premises, or they're going to give away free. So let's say you have a restaurant and you don't want to sell beer, or maybe you're opening up, your license is still pending, and you decide, I'll just let customers come on in and bring their own wine with them. That's actually a violation of the law. You can't do that without a license. I want to get back to a couple of things that the chairman said before I wrap up here. The temporary permit. It's the temporary retail permit that we issue for 90 days. Outside of New York, it's available to somebody just starting a business or somebody who's buying a business from somebody else. that's only for retailers. Right? And if you're a package store licensee, you can't get it. For manufacturers, only wineries and farm wineries can get a temporary permit to operate while your application is pending. And for wholesalers, do we have any wholesalers here? Okay, there is no temporary permit for wholesalers to operate while the application is pending. You have to wait. The ATAP program. The chairman was discussing about what the authority does. We go out and do the programs. We do it in conjunction with the Empire State Restaurant Association. There are also, besides that entity, there's also companies out there who do provide those training for a fee. I think probably the most well-known one is TIPS. When you hear TIPS, they are an ATAP certified school. So what we do is, a company comes to us, they show us their curriculum, we sign off on it, they get a certificate from us, and then they can do the trainings to your staff. Right? For those of you who deal with retail sales, it's well worth the bother of getting your staff trained before they commit a violation. Right? If they commit one, it will still help you reduce the penalty, but you can probably minimize the risk of the sales, the illegal sales, if you get the training first. Our contact information, the chairman mentioned the Craft Bev email address. We also have, if you have a licensing question specific to, maybe your pending application or something that is really germane to the licensing process, I have the contact information in that handout. There's also the email address for our counsel's office if you have a legal question. And I know I kind of rushed through this a little bit, but I want to make sure we kind of stay on schedule. I don't know if we're going to take questions now or at the end of the...
Take a couple, we have time for a few questions.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I actually have two. You had
No,
mentioned...
no.
Oh, okay. You mentioned farm winery must operate on a farm.
Yes, sir.
Is there a size restriction on that farm?
No. There's a definition. We put the definition in 2011 because before that, there wasn't any. And I heard the story that back when the farm winery license first came out, a lady who had one of those windowsill flower pots, she had roses in them. It was in Levittown. And we gave her a farm winery license. Yeah. So now it pretty much has to be you're producing agricultural products for commercial purpose. So if I put some grapevines, take a third of my property, third of an acre of my land, and put up some grapevines, and I'm selling them, that's a farm. Okay?
Is that
And it doesn't have to be, you could be a dairy farm. That's a farm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you don't have to grow the grapes. I can have a dairy farm and get a farm winery license and buy my grapes from someplace else.
But zoning still applies to that.
Hmm?
Then does zoning supersede that?
If zoning says you can only have the cows there and no vineyard, yeah.
And-
All right, I'll give you the second question.
All right. So there's farm winery, farm brewery, all these farm
Distiller,
yeah. Well,
farm
there's-
cidery, farm meadery, yeah.
which then correlate to using New York State products.
Yes, right.
Is
So
there-
for,
Has there ever been a thought to having a on-premise or off-premise farm license essentially that would have that retailer only be able to sell New York State products?
there was just a moment ago. Come on, history, yes. Yes, there has now been a thought about that.
Okay.
You just got it? Man.
Oh, I just got it.
That's actually a good idea.
where
Oh,
the,
you have a second, okay?
oh, cool. Well, the way that the farm winery permit or some of the farm operation permits are, the licensing fees are quite discounted as compared to some of the more traditional ones.
There are some legal issues about that, about restricting retail sales of New York products. All right, so you get your 2 questions, you're done now. Yes, sir.
You mentioned a few minutes ago the word commercial in terms of size. Do you have, does the state have any idea, or the state liquor authority, as to what size constitutes commercial viability?
No? I don't know if you really have to be viable.
You just blow your money and be done with it.
And you'd be shocked at how often that happens.
No kidding.
But the goal we have is to open you, not to shut you. So if you can show us that you're selling something, we'll probably open you.
And then there's a whole separate issue. I know there's someone here from Ag and Markets. There's a whole separate issue for the whole agricultural district issue and how that plays into what towns can do with their zoning. We have nothing to do with that. Our requirement for a farm doesn't require you to be in an agricultural district, right? But whether or not you can have a farm in your town in a particular zone is up to the town. Both of you, one at a time.
I'm sorry, but can you just go over a little bit of the rectifier license?
Right, so a rectifier license is, you're not distilling the liquor, you're buying distilled liquor or wine, or even beer maybe, from other sources, you're blending it into another product. Or you're taking a distilled spirit and you're gonna purify it, right? And making a new product. So that's what a rectifier is. A distiller's license carries with it the ability to be a rectifier, but if you just want to be a rectifier, there's a rectifier's license and a micro-rectifier's license.
Where does, do those licenses dictate where those products can be sold?
Well, as far as in New York State,
Yes, sir.
well, the licenses don't, but the licensing scheme does. All right, so if you're making a liquor, you can distribute yourself to retailers. All manufacturers in New York State have the right to self-distribute. But if you're using a wholesaler, it has to be a liquor wholesaler. And then the retailer has to be a liquor retailer. So if it's off premises, it's going to be a package/liquor store. If it's on premises, it's going to be somebody who has a full liquor license, special on-premises liquor license, special on-premises liquor license.
Okay.
And you cannot direct ship to consumers. I should point out, the only manufacturer who has the right to direct ship product to New York State residents are the wineries and farm wineries. No other manufacturer can do that, whether you're in-state or out-of-state. Yes, sir.
Okay, Chairman Bradley partially answered my question. I own Twin Fork Beer Company in Riverhead. We have a wholesaler's license. We just applied for, well, in September, we applied for our brewer's license. I'm told that the lead time is 15 to 20 weeks, when it was 30 to 60 days.
No,
So he said that there is a computer process now that's the application.
no, we will, so we call it our back office project. The software systems we're using now,
He's talking about licensing times is what he's concerned with.
right, but he was mentioning the computer system
Right.
we're talking about. So that's coming on board. The licensing system we have now were put in place when I started with the authority 20 years ago. All right, so we're updating those. The processing time for licenses is now, where are we now?
20-some weeks.
20-something weeks, okay? From the time you put it in the mail until the time you get an answer from us.
But it was never 60 days, even in the best days that we've ever had. It was always about 3 months.
3 months, now it's gone to.
It's about 5,
almost six.
it's about 5, almost 6, yes.
Right. Now, if I'm a wholesaler, I've had a license since 2014. Technically speaking, I already have a record with the SLA. I'm applying for a brewer's
That will
license.
help move the application along. If we already have your personal information on file, you can, there's a form to use, where you check off what documents you already have on file. That does speed things up a little bit, but given the volume of applications we have, it's not going to speed it up a lot.
How many applications do you have a month?
About 1,600?
Really?
give or take.
Those
And it's statewide, of course.
Yes.
And of any variety of license or permit.
Correct. No, that doesn't include many permits.
Right, so, yeah, that does include, and I didn't even get to it, the list of permits,
Okay.
catering permits, special event permits,
Right.
all-night permits.
Yes,
Those aren't counted.
that's, okay, that's something else.
Yeah, Jim?
Oh, I have a question about the marketing permit.
Yes.
Um,
If you're a manufacturer out here, you should have a marketing permit.
Right, we're a farm winery, and I noticed that now you have to have a transportation permit to go with the marketing
You know,
permit?
that, I don't know how that happened,
Okay,
okay? We're trying to get, somehow that popped up on the application.
right,
Because I've been telling people, if you have the marketing permit, you can transport with that marketing permit.
okay.
And if anybody ever sent an email to the craft beverage account, that's the answer they got. And then somebody told me, well, wait a minute, I went to apply and I was told I need a transportation permit. So I've been dealing with our licensing people to see what the heck happened.
Okay. I have another question about the marketing
Can
permit.
I follow up on that for a sec? We recently applied for our marketing permit, and I just put our license number as the transportation permit, and they accepted that. So that's at least a temporary workaround until we fix that.
Put your license number. Yes, sir.
As a small producer, we are constantly battling with the larger manufacturers in terms of our ability to survive in the market where they might be inducing the rest of the retail license holders to carry their products and violating goods and services laws. Are you looking at that and enforcing that?
We have become increasingly more proactive in going after manufacturers and some wholesalers for gifts and services violations. We hit Southern Wine and Spirits with, was it $3.5 million? Empire's been hit hard with some and we have investigators who focus just on trade practice and manufacturers and wholesalers. We have some prosecutors who focus primarily on that. And we just had a brewer and a warehouse permittee come before the authority and pay some hefty fines because essentially the brewer was selling the beer to the warehouse permittee who was repackaging it and selling it as their own beer. Right? But for the gifts and services, there are constantly investigations going on about that. And they're coming to the board more regularly, both from the big guys, and we're also finding small operations who tend not to have compliance people on board to let their employees know you can't do this. Right? That's the one thing I would emphasize. It's the one thing the chairman emphasizes whenever one of these wholesalers or manufacturers comes before the board is if you don't have a compliance person on board, even if it's not full-time, get somebody who knows what they're doing. Right?
And to your point, as I mentioned when I was speaking, we don't know what's going on specifically per se unless we hear from somebody. So I hear that complaint that you're giving me all the time in general terms. Think about the amount of licenses we have to be able to have to go check randomly to see if someone's getting a gift and service to put their tap on, or like in the case of one of the cases Tom was talking about, they were doing credit card swipes at restaurants in order to buy their products. And how that case came to us is one of my friends owns a restaurant and called me and asked me if this was legal. So unless we hear about it, and I encourage you to tell us, your name's not going to get out there. You can do it anonymously, or you can do it and sign the complaint. We'll look into it. It may take us a while to do it because of our resources. Plus, in order to prove it, we do have to collect a lot of evidence. And as you can see, the fines there, when you do that, are pretty steep. So they're going to obviously not just lay down for us. But I would encourage you to specific complaints because we'll send people in and we want to do those cases because I know it's happening. And unless I know specifically, it's very hard to catch.
I think it's hard for us to, we also just see it in general terms. And you don't see the credit card swipes, you don't hear specifically what's happening behind closed doors, but you just see the products there and you smell it and you kind of have to yourself. So
Yeah, but some of these restaurant people will tell you why they're not carrying your product. So-and-so's doing, because half of them don't understand it's illegal.
Right.
And if they come to us, generally, they're gonna get a slap on the wrist as long as they're providing me with the information that's gonna turn into something bigger.
So
I mean, that's what I did in my prior career. I chased drug dealers, and this is what, this is the types of cases I used to do, and that's what I'd like to continue to do in this instance, but we need the people to give us the information.
What would you need in terms of a personnel expansion to feel comfortable that you could deal with all the issues in the state?
I don't know that I need a personnel expansion to deal with the issues. I mean, right now, a lot of it is information
Okay.
in the topic he's talking about. I mean, we're pretty well
Well, you
funded. I
talk-
mean, obviously, any agency could use more resources. Any business could use more resources. So I'm not going to tell you I couldn't, but I don't believe we're struggling in that sense.
Well, Tom talked about 25 investigators statewide for.
I think,
Oh,
Correct, I
you
do,
did,
yes.
Yes, okay. I mean,
So,
does 250 get you to comfortable?
I couldn't answer that, but the other aspect is if you add 200 to 250 or 1,000 investigators, then everybody in this room is getting fined on a weekly basis, and that's not our goal either.
Right, okay.
there's definitely a fine line there that we want to stay away from. So we'll take one more question, Steve.
Tom,
Oh,
just a
sorry.
quick wine doggy bag question that came up recently. Section 81 seems to say that a winery with a restaurant can let customers leave with unfinished bottles as long as they're sealed. How does that relate to the wine growler provision under Section 105?
okay, so there's a provision in the law for on-premises retailers that allows, if somebody comes in, buys a bottle of wine with dinner, a full meal, if they don't finish it, they can take it with them. It's got to be sealed, go into like a little evidence bag, and they can take it with them. The law was changed in 16 when they did the Sunday hours to expand that privilege to wineries. Right, so that if someone comes in, is having a meal at your restaurant, and doesn't finish the bottle, they can take it with them. The growlers is different. The growlers is when someone's coming in and not buying the wine to have there, is they're just buying for off-premises consumption. Now, the way the law was written, that could always happen for beer. I could technically walk into a convenience store and they could sell me a beer in a red Solo cup. As long as I took it outside to drink, that was perfectly legal. Now, I might get arrested immediately by the police for the open container violation, but it's fine for the license. So beer was always allowed to be sold in unsealed containers. It was not the same for liquor and wine. So years ago, they created the exception for the on-premises restaurants. Now that's been expanded to you guys, but you also can sell, in 2016, it was also changed so you can sell wine to go in technically unsealed containers, and that was to allow you to fill growlers of wine.
So if a winery doesn't have a restaurant, can it still sell to go in a different container in a growler law?
It can still do that, yes.
He misspoke. You don't need to be having a meal at a winery. The restaurant, you have to have the meal at. The winery, you don't. You can just sit down and be having a bottle of wine. Well, it's the way we're enforcing it.
Okay.
You guys are betting this now? Or?
We're gonna get moving, so.
You had mentioned before the legality of a winery to have a tavern, but you did not define for us a tavern as opposed to a restaurant.
Okay, so under the ABC law, there's a definition of a restaurant. And it means having a full menu, having a chef on duty, what you would think about when you think about a restaurant. A tavern has a much lower food requirement. Soup and sandwiches, frozen pizza suffice, submarine sandwiches, that sort of thing. As long, more than just bar snacks, but hamburgers, hot dogs, things like that. Like I said, a microwave with a couple of frozen pizzas, that qualifies.
What I tell people is we don't actually care if you sell any of it. Because the law requires you to have it, so get frozen food, put a freezer in there, and just stick it there for 10 years.
Now, you still may have a problem with your local zoning. If your zoning says you can't have a food establishment in that particular zone, you still, just because we say you can do it, doesn't mean you can do it.
So Shake Shack would be a tavern.
I'd have to see the menu.
I honestly have never
That's
been
two
in one, so I
questions,
couldn't
Paul, you
tell
only said one, so we're gonna finish up.
All right, thank you very much, Chairman Bradley.